The Roman scutum was the most feared defensive weapon in ancient history. This massive rectangular shield turned ordinary soldiers into an unstoppable wall of wood and metal. When thousands of legionaries locked their scutums together, they became a human tank that crushed everything in its path. Empires fell before it, armies scattered at the sight of it. For centuries, the scutum was the gold standard of battlefield protection. So here's the question that should keep you up at night. If the scutum was so perfect, why did the medieval knight, the most elite warrior of the Middle Ages, completely reject it? They didn't modify it. They didn't improve it. They abandoned it entirely and replaced it with kite shields, heater shields, and tiny bucklers. What happened? Did they forget how to build them? Were they stupid? No. The truth is far more interesting. The scutum had a fatal design flaw that made it completely useless in the new world of medieval warfare. And understanding why reveals something profound about how war itself transforms over time. Let's talk about what the scutum actually was. This wasn't just a shield. It was a 4-foot-tall curved rectangle made of layered wood, covered in leather and canvas, with a metal boss in the center. It weighed around 20 pounds. That's heavy. But weight wasn't the problem. The scutum was never designed for one man fighting alone. It was designed for formation combat. Specifically, it was built for the Roman legion, a military system that required thousands of soldiers moving as a single organism. When you stood in a Roman formation, your shield didn't just protect you, it protected the guy next to you. His shield protected you. Everyone overlapped. Everyone supported each other. The edges of the shields created a continuous barrier with no gaps. This is why the Romans could march straight into a rain of arrows and barely flinch. This is why they could advance uphill against fortified positions and win. The scutum turned individuals into a machine. And as long as that machine stayed together, it was virtually indestructible. The famous testudo formation, where soldiers held shields above and around them like a turtle shell, could deflect everything from arrows to boiling oil. Roman engineering at its finest. But here's the thing. That machine only works if you have the machine. The Roman Empire wasn't just an army. It was a state with professional soldiers, standardized training, supply chains, and military infrastructure that spanned continents. Every legionary trained the same way. Every unit used the same tactics. The system was the weapon, and the scutum was just one piece of that system. Now let's fast forward to the collapse. When Rome fell, the entire military structure collapsed with it. There were no more standing armies of professional soldiers, no more standardized training academies, no more supply depots cranking out identical shields for thousands of men. Medieval Europe was fragmented into small kingdoms, duchies, and fiefdoms. Warfare became localized. Instead of massive pitched battles with tens of thousands of soldiers, you had raids, skirmishes, and feuds between rival lords. A knight might ride out with a dozen men to defend his village from bandits, or he might join a small warband to siege a neighboring castle. These weren't Roman legions. These were small, mobile groups where individual skill mattered more than formation discipline. And this is where the scutum starts to fail. Imagine you're a medieval warrior in a small raid. You're not standing shoulder to shoulder with 500 other men. You're fighting in loose groups, maybe even one-on-one. Suddenly, that massive 4-foot shield isn't an asset. It's a burden, it's heavy, it's awkward. It's designed to lock into a formation that doesn't exist anymore. Without the wall of shields around you, the scutum becomes a clumsy piece of wood that slows you down and tires you out. You can't move quickly. You can't pivot easily. You're holding a door in front of you while trying to fight for your life. In medieval combat, where speed and agility could mean the difference between life and death, the scutum was a death sentence. But the real nail in the coffin for the Scutum was the horse. Let's talk about the cavalry revolution. The Romans used cavalry, but they were never the core of their military strategy. The legion was built around infantry. But in medieval Europe, the horse changed everything. Knights weren't just soldiers, they were mounted warriors, and the horse gave them speed, height, and devastating charge power. A knight on horseback could smash through infantry lines like a hammer through glass. But here's the problem. Try using a Roman scutum while riding a horse. Go ahead, I'll wait. It's a nightmare. The scutum is flat and rectangular. When you hold it on a horse, it bumps into the horse's neck. It digs into your thigh. It throws off your balance. Horses are living creatures that move, and a rigid rectangular shield doesn't flex with that movement. Every time the horse turns or gallops, you're wrestling with this massive plank of wood that's trying to throw you off. It's not just inconvenient, it's dangerous. You can't control your horse properly. You can't lower your lance effectively. You can't maneuver in combat. The scutum was designed for a man standing on the ground in a tight formation. It was never meant for cavalry. So what did medieval warriors do? They redesigned the shield from the ground up. Enter the kite shield. This is the iconic teardrop-shaped shield you see in the Bayeux tapestry. It's long at the top and tapers to a point at the bottom. Why? Because that point protects your leg while you're on horseback. The curved shape wraps around your body instead of sticking out flat. It moves with you. It doesn't fight the horse's motion, and most importantly, it's lighter. A kite shield weighs around 10 to 15 pounds compared to the scutum's 20. That might not sound like much, but when you're holding a shield for hours during a battle, every pound matters. The kite shield wasn't a downgrade from the scutum. It was an ergonomic evolution designed for a completely different style of warfare. As time went on, shields kept getting smaller. The heater shield appeared in the 13th century. This is the classic medieval shield you see in heraldry, shaped like the bottom of a flat iron. It's even smaller and lighter than the kite shield. Why? Because armor was improving. Early medieval warriors wore chainmail, which is flexible but doesn't stop heavy blows. You still needed a big shield. But by the late Middle Ages, plate armor entered the scene. Full plate armor turned a knight into a walking tank. Steel covered every inch of your body. Your chest, arms, legs. Even your fingers had articulated metal plates. When you're wearing full plate armor, you don't need a massive shield anymore. You are the shield. Your entire body is a scutum made of tempered steel. This freed up knights to use smaller shields or no shields at all, which meant they could wield two-handed weapons. Long swords, pole axes, great swords. These weapons delivered far more striking power than a one-handed sword. The shift from big shields to heavy armor wasn't a loss of defensive capability. It was a reallocation of protection that allowed for greater offensive power. Now, before you think the scutum disappeared completely, let me introduce you to its zombie successor, the pavis. This was a massive wooden shield used by crossbowmen in the late Middle Ages. It was tall, rectangular, and propped up on the ground like a portable wall. Crossbowmen would hide behind it, reload their weapons, then step out to shoot. Sound familiar? It's basically a stationary scutum, but notice who used it. Not knights, crossbowmen, soldiers who needed to stand still and defend a position. The pavis worked because it returned to the original purpose of the scutum, creating a defensive barrier for soldiers in a fixed position. But knights didn't use the pavis. Why? Because knights didn't hide. Knights attacked. They charged. They closed distance. A stationary shield is worthless when your entire combat doctrine is built around mobility and aggression. This brings us to the core truth. The scutum wasn't rejected because it was bad. It was rejected because it represented a type of warfare that no longer existed. The Scutum was the ultimate tool for mass infantry formations in large-scale pitched battles fought by professional standing armies. Medieval Europe didn't have that. It had feudal levies, mounted knights, and small-scale conflicts where individual prowess mattered more than collective discipline. Using a Scutum in a medieval battle would be like bringing a trench shovel to a dogfight. Sure, it's useful in the right context, but in the wrong context, it'll get you killed. Military technology isn't a linear progression from worse to better. It's a constant adaptation to changing circumstances. The weapons and armor that dominate one era become obsolete in the next, not because they're inferior, but because the rules of war itself have changed. The medieval knight didn't lose Roman technology, he outgrew it. He adapted his equipment to match the reality of his world. Smaller shields for horseback combat, heavier armor for personal protection, two-handed weapons for greater offense. Every piece of his kit was optimized for the battlefield he actually fought on, not the battlefield his ancestors romanticized. And that's the lesson here. The best equipment isn't the stuff that sounds cool or has the most history behind it. It's the stuff that works for your situation. The Roman legionary was the apex predator of the ancient world, and his Scutum reflected that. The medieval knight was the apex predator of his world, and his gear reflected that too. Different eras, different wars, different solutions. If you enjoyed learning how history connects in unexpected ways, hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more where this came from.